Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Challenged Book Summaries. I've explained in episode 1 why I use the term challenged books versus banned books. If my thumbnail brought you here, yes, the Bible is on that list. If you go to the American Library Association website, look at the 100 top banned books for the years 2010 to 2019. The Holy Bible came in at number 52. What I had planned to mention also in episode 1 about the banned books summaries, and I did mention that the Bible came in at number 52 on that American Library list. What I had missed mentioning there, and comes up in this one because of the books I'll be talking about, an article caught my attention as I was going through double-checking information. This was on npr.org. I'll leave that in the description box below. The title of the article, it's from June 2023. The title of the article is Utah School Removed Bible from Schools. You can go read the article yourself. What caught my attention was the headline, and these are very different times for sure, particularly when you consider the different groups that are coming forward, asking for various titles to be pulled off library shelves, bookshelves. As I mentioned in my previous video about an article that I had found, again, double-checking information to do these videos. Now there are also bans and people going in to check classrooms, so books that teachers have brought in themselves for students to have access to read. Those are now being monitored. If you're a teacher, whether it's Canada or the United States, you really need to start paying attention to what's happening and coming. Another book, I've mentioned this, I'm going to keep mentioning this. This is Harry Potter, Narnia, and The Lord of the Rings. This is by Richard Abanes. I found this, thankfully, at one of my thrift store hauls. So glad I picked it up. Pristine condition. Even though I've read it, the spine is still intact. It is just packed with great information. It provides a balanced viewpoint about the Harry Potter books, about the Narnia books and C.S. Lewis, as well as the Lord of the Rings trilogy by Tolkien. I really am impressed with this author. When I first picked this book up, I was thinking it was going to be just slamming all of these series, which it is not. This individual gives a very balanced viewpoint, presents a lot of great information that I think whether you're for or against banning or challenging books, it's an important read. Does an excellent job of presenting the information. I am so glad that I found this book because typically it isn't something I would have, if I was wandering through a bookstore, have come across or picked up. But because I was in the thrift store and I found so many great authors, titles at an amazing price, it's a great read. So if you haven't already picked it up, I do recommend checking it out. Go to Goodreads, see what other people are saying, other programs or applications as well where people give their comments, but I highly recommend whichever side of the issue you're on about this. In this particular episode, and why it tied in with the two books I've just mentioned, I'm going to talk about the Golden Compass, the Amber Spyglass, and City of Bones. So first, Philip Pullman's Dark Trilogy. When I went to the library, there were only two of the three there. Someone had borrowed the second. I remember watching The Golden Compass years ago with Nicole Kidman. I was looking forward to the next two movies, which I've not seen, don't know if they were even made. I know there is a big hullabaloo about the books and people's interpretation of what they present. And again, it just boggles my mind how much time some people have on their hands. I'm willing to bet the majority of people making the complaints haven't actually read the trilogy. I've read two of the three. I won't be taking the time to read the second, partly because between the first and the third, I got the gist of the story, the premise, the issues, all of that. It wasn't a bad read, honestly. I don't think it's the big hullabaloo that some people are making it out to be, quite frankly. It is if you read it from that mindset, but if you just read it as a story about a different world with different dimensions and issues and things going on, then that's exactly what it is. A fictional story about a different world with different dimensions, etc. And I mean, that's part of the issue, isn't it? It's what your mindset is going into the book versus what was the author's purpose and intention of writing the book. Do I think Pullman went out on purpose to rock the Christian world? No. Were there comments that he may have made that got people's knickers in a knot? Probably. Let's face it, folks, drama and that type of thing gets you attention, gets you noticed, and I'm a perfect example. If this hadn't come up on the banned book list and all the hullabaloo around it, I wouldn't have read the book. So there you go. That's the other part missing from this issue. And as anyone who knows me or worked with me can tell you, the best way to get me to do something is to tell me not to do it. My father learned that early on in life. Yes, I am that type of a brat. So once I heard about the banned book issue, not only is it important to me, but if you're going to tell me there are all these books that I shouldn't be reading, guess what? I'm going to start going through the list and reading them. And the irony is there are books that I've read that I've enjoyed, wanted to revisit. Turns out they're on that list as well. So go figure. Back to the Golden Compass, the Amber Spyglass, and I'll put the two stories together. We have our one character, a young girl. She overhears some things. There's a plot going on. There's things happening in her world. One of her friends ends up being taken, and she's trying to rescue him. We have shapeshifters. We have all kinds of people working behind the scenes. It's really hard to tell sometimes who's actually trying to help and support her and who's trying to sway her or eliminate her entirely, because she is crucial to everything happening and working out. We get into that concept of prophecies and how people act. And again, I go back to the Mayans on this one and Quetzalcoatl and what happened when the Spanish came to their shores and their belief in that prophecy. There are lessons to be learned, people. And in this book, we certainly find out all the different choices and actions that people make because they've heard of the prophecy. Some are trying to ensure the girl doesn't hear about them because of her role in it, and they don't want to sway her actions. There are others who don't want her to accomplish what her role is. There's a lot to these stories, quite frankly, about relationships, prophecies, decisions, choices, loyalty, betrayal, all kinds of things. So I am glad that I read it. I likely wouldn't have, like I say, if it wasn't for the banned book issue and doing the 24 in 2024 reading challenge, which I've mentioned in my other videos regarding this subject. I think it's a good read. There are a lot of important things that can be gained from it if you read it with the thought of it's a fictional story, it's a fictional world. There are interesting and fascinating characters and choices and character development. The one thing I found frustrating, and it goes right from book 1 to book 3, and I'm sure as well in book 2, is this young girl has a mother and a father. She's not connected with her mother. There's various issues, rarely sees her father. And it's really hard, at least for me, let me know in the comments below if it was different for you, hard to tell whether either parent is working to help her or eliminate her. And that, it would have, for me, it would have been nice to know which side of the fence these two people were sitting on. But it goes back and forth and back and forth, and you never, or at least I couldn't figure out which side they were on, whether they were both working against her, whether they were both in their own way working to help and support her. But in any case, like I say, there is definitely something of benefit to be gained if you enjoy reading about different worlds. You like action, suspense, a variety of characters. We have shapeshifters, we have witches, we have humans, we have a whole variety of things going on. We have the different dimensions, so you got to remember which world you're in at the time and what's going on. You have little dragonflies, and it really is a fascinating world to delve into. So if you enjoy that type of thing, you may well enjoy The Golden Compass. As I mentioned earlier, there is mention of Pullman's trilogy in here and some very excellent points made by this author. Not necessarily against, because like I say, he provides a balanced viewpoint, which I very much respected. The third book in this video is City of Bones. The picture's potentially going to be here now that I know I can move it when I'm editing. I read this series a number of years ago when I was working in a high school, and a number of my students were reading it. So not only did I read the books that we were reading in the English classes because I found it helpful to know the story. So when I was having a conversation with students, I could guide and direct them without spoilers. I'm not into that type of thing, nor am I into robbing people of figuring out how bright they are and figuring it out on their own. But I read The City of Bones because a number of students were reading it, not in a class, but for their personal reading. And I decided to get familiar with the series so that we could have discussions about the characters and events. I revisited City of Bones recently, and I just discovered going through my list of what books I'd read that City of Bones had been challenged. I read maybe 2, possibly 3 of the Mortal Instruments series. I didn't buy them. I borrowed them from the library, as I did in this case. There's potential. I know they're very popular. They go on for quite a bit. I think there's 5 in this original set, and then there's others. For me, part of it may have been because I was reading it the same time I read Percy Jackson, the first 5 books. There was also a series about dragons I was reading at that time, and I can't remember right now the author or the name of the series, whether it had color in the name or not. I know I enjoyed it, and I actually bought that whole series because, hello, dragons. And that may have been what swayed my decision about the Mortal Instruments. I enjoyed Percy Jackson because I enjoy mythology, all of that type of thing. I enjoyed the dragon books because, again, hello, dragons. And City of Bones, I think the way the first book ends just gave me the creeps. And I'm not going to give it away. I mean, if you've read City of Bones, you may know what I'm talking about, how the story ends and the one character takes off. Our young girl, much like in Percy, at a certain age, seems to be the standard for these types of books, is youth hit a certain age, and that's when everything starts happening and the supernatural, different character world opens up and they discover they're a part of it, although they never knew. It's how it happens in Percy Jackson, and it's how it happens in City of Bones. Parents try to protect these kids and hope that those worlds won't come crashing through, but of course, it's like any secret or little lie. Eventually, things always come out, and not in a good way. City of Bones is no exception. There's the girl trying to figure out what's happened with her mom, whether a friend is actually a family friend or an enemy. There's all these different creatures she didn't know about. Of course, our mortal instruments and the tattoos and the weapons and the different world and what happened back there and why did her mother leave. There's a lot of suspense. It isn't that the book isn't well written, it just isn't a story that spoke to me, that I felt like pursuing and finding out what happened with this character. Like I say, when I first read it, it was probably because I was getting through Percy Jackson, and that was a story I very much enjoyed with the different characters and the mythology. I was reading through the Dragon series, and I enjoyed that story. There were some things to it that were sort of, really? What? What about the North Pole and dragons and everything? So I think by the time I got to City of Bones, I was kind of done with that fictional genre at the time. And I think I was also reading Marked, the House of Night series by PC and Kristen Cast. Basically, House of Night is like the Hogwarts for vampires. So if you enjoy Harry Potter, you'd probably enjoy Marked. They're much shorter reads, and it's a series of 13 books. I will be talking about Marked. That's also a book that was challenged, but I'll be doing a separate video on that entire series later in October. As I've said, if you enjoy adventure, trying to figure out characters' choices, who's your ally, who isn't. Are you getting things right? There's mystery, there's suspense. It's a good read. It just isn't one that spoke to me, but there may be other people, obviously, because the series went on, who very much enjoyed it. So I always recommend giving a book a test run through your public library, going to Goodreads or other sites to find out what other people are saying about it, and giving it a try for yourself and deciding. Golden Compass, Amber Spyglass, and City of Bones. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read them. What did you think of the series? Would you recommend them? Are you interested in reading them after hearing what I had to say? Until next time, take good care.